Earthworks Audio is a proud sponsor of the Tech Arts Podcast. From front of house to center stage for over 25 years, Earthworks microphones have sculpted the sounds of your favorite concerts, venues, and performances. Capturing emotion with sound. Earthworksaudio.com.
From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz.
This podcast is brought to you by AC Lighting, world-class products with world-class service. aclighting.com. This is the Tech Arts Podcast, where we talk about tech, leadership, and all things that concern church audio, video, and lighting.
Welcome to the Tech Arts Podcast in the Earthworks Audio Studios. My name is DL. So glad to have you joining us today. Today we have an awesome podcast where we define the word excellence. It's called the DNA of excellence. What are we talking about, or what should we be talking about when that word is used? Bryan Bailey joins us right now to preview that discussion. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, how's it going, man? This was a fun discussion. Excellence is something that, I think has been kind of misused, the term, in a lot of churches. I think a lot of people, when they hear the word excellence, they have a negative connotation to that for all sorts of reasons. So that's a huge part of the discussion, and just kind of my passion about what it means to pursue excellence in the church, what it means to pursue excellence utilizing volunteers, and every aspect of that within what we do in media and tech ministry in the church.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun segment. We really dive in on that word and help churches understand that excellence is not, okay, I'll give this away. Excellence is not perfection. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But speaking of excellence, we have a segment on the Earthworks Audio SR117 microphone. It's an excellent microphone, if you can't get the theme here.
Nice transition. That was good.
Hitting the word excellence. Yeah, great transition there. But I know you used that mic at Prestonwood, and you kind of recently implemented it. Do you like that mic?
Man, it's funny because, we demo lots of things, just to try things out. When we demoed this capsule, not only did our audio engineers kind of go crazy about it, because it allowed them to, it simplified their EQs that they were applying to the vocal mics, especially to the worship leaders. But the worship leaders instantly noticed in their ears a huge difference. One of our worship leaders in particular said, "Don't take this away from me. I want this sound." So yeah, we like them. they did really well for us. We put them on all of our wireless mics at both of our campuses.
Yeah, it's a great microphone, and we have a segment coming up to talk about that, so you want to stay tuned for that. We also have a segment called the Paragon Angle, which is very helpful to churches, and today we're covering the subject of what do I look for in an integration firm? So no one wants to miss that one, especially if you're on the tech team. That's coming up in just a few minutes. Bryan, I see you're speaking at FILO this year. This is one of the premier conferences that all techs should attend. But for those who don't know what it is, or for those who have been before, tell them why they should attend this year.
FILO is a really unique opportunity for worship and media teams to come together. There's offerings for both. it's a really unique opportunity as well for volunteers who help out in media ministry to come. It's very friendly to all levels of understanding of technology. I've had the privilege the past couple of years of not only speaking, but helping out with leading some of the different sessions and the different rooms that they're in. And this year I'm helping with host the advanced segment. And that's one of the great things about FILO is we have advanced sessions, we have beginner sessions, we have audio, we have lighting. Everything is really well defined. So you're not kind of wondering, is this the topic that I really want to get into? Because we really strive to make sure that it's applicable for you and that you can understand it well. So it's just one of those times where you get to spend a couple days around other people who understand what you're going through and what you're dealing with. And the networking is phenomenal. And by networking, I don't just mean like, getting numbers and emails of people. I mean like, connecting and commiserating and encouraging each other. It's a very important time of year for me. I've committed that FILO is something that I'm going to do every year.
I've spoken there. It's the best part about it is how it kind of uplifts your spirit for the year to come and what you're doing. But then they also have 8 breakout sessions. They have intensives. They have lunch and learns. You're speaking. Can you maybe give away? Can you give away what you're talking on?
Yeah. Well, this year I'm going to be speaking in one of the video sessions on robotics and robotic cameras and how we have started to utilize those at Prestonwood and the future that I see for those in the church. So I think churches of all sizes will be interested in that discussion for sure.
Yeah, especially nowadays when everything seems to be heading in that direction with robotics and automation and things of that nature. You want to bring your team to experience this community, folks. FILO, it's unbelievable. Other technical artists from all over the world are coming in. You'll learn new skills and be reminded that what you do matters. Being first in and last out isn't for everyone, but for those of us who live and breathe it, the FILO Conference is the perfect place to feel connected to people who get you and want to see you succeed in this noble calling of FILO. Make sure you attend FILO 2025. Register now by going to philo.org. It's happening May 6th and 7th in Chicagoland. Go to philo.org to register your team today. Don't miss it. Right now, let's hear about mic techniques with Earthworks Audio. On today's segment, we are talking with Earthworks Audio Nick about mixing tech with talent and choosing your next vocal mic for worship. Hey, Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
Now, Nick, back in the day, picking a vocal mic was pretty much reduced to throwing the same mic on every single singer. It's just what you did for the money, but jump forward to today's mix techniques, and we have so many affordable choices when it comes to vocal mics. Picking the right mic head for your singer is important. And I know the Earthworks Audio SR117 has really surprised everyone with its quality to price. So Nick, tell us about this mic and why it's a great choice for the modern worship singer.
Absolutely. So the SR117 is the latest vocal mic from Earthworks Audio. It's available in this wired configuration, but it's also available as a wireless capsule for both Shure and Sennheiser systems. You actually hit on the main pain point that we were trying to solve with this microphone, is that there are so many different options today because there are so many different kinds of singers out there. Everybody's going to have a different vocal style. Everybody's going to have a different approach when they step up to the mic. And it's worth remembering too, miking a vocalist is not always as difficult as miking a choir or a drum set per se. It is still something you have to be mindful of because it's one person who is stepping up and singing on their own with a microphone. Like, it's kind of a naked thing to do. It's a very emotionally vulnerable thing to do. And you want to make sure that the gear is able to support them in that way and not getting in the way of their artistry and creativity. To that same point, the SR117 is built with ease of use in mind. No matter how you use it, no matter how much you move it around, no matter how loud or soft you are going to be getting an excellent sound that accurately and cleanly represents who you are as a singer. And that makes things easier for the vocalist, but it also makes things easier for the engineer too, because the balanced frequency response and the wide polar pattern means that you don't have to do any work really to get this mic to sound excellent. Any sort of EQ or signal processing that you're going to do on this microphone is going to be done in the name of creativity and in enhancing the vocalist who is using it. And that balanced frequency response also means that you can give this to any vocalist of any genre or of any, singing style, and they're going to sound excellent on it. The idea here is removing those barriers of, fine-tuning gear, fine-tuning signal processing, and just giving people a really tremendous vocal microphone that they can just get up on stage with and sing to their heart's content.
Well, one thing I hear a lot when it comes to the Earthworks SR117 is, I can't afford that. And I hear it from people who haven't gone and looked at the price. You've got to go look at the price for the SR117. It's an amazing price point. It's very affordable for the quality that you get. Matter of fact, I'm on an Earthworks microphone right now. I'm on the Ethos, and the plosive protection for the SR117, I've got to have a spit filter here, a windscreen to get rid of the plosives. The SR117 is great with plosive protection and has a lot of gain before feedback. So Nick, tell us, why is that gain before feedback important?
When you're mixing live sound, you want it to be loud. You want it to be there for the audience. You want the sound to be present. And if you're turning up your vocal mic and it can't handle much gain before feedback, you're going to start getting distortion. You're going to start getting loud noises. And nobody wants that. That's not enjoyable for anybody in the worship space, or really any space that involves audio. The idea here is that you can turn this microphone up and you will be heard crystal clear without any issues at all. And again, it comes back to that same point about ease of use and just being able to take this mic and go on stage and you'll be set. And anything that you do after the fact in terms of signal processing is done to enhance creativity and not to just get a usable sound.
The mic sounds clear, it sounds great, and it is very affordable. I know Prestonwood Church down the street from me demoed a few of them and ended up buying a ton of these microphones. They love the SR117 and speak very highly of it. So if you want to get the SR117 for either the Shure, Sennheiser, or even the wired version, go to earthworksaudio.com. The SR117, it's what you've always wanted your other vocal mics to sound like. earthworksaudio.com. From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz. Right now, let's hear from Paragon 360 and the Paragon Angle.
A single source approach brings efficiency of installation and coordination, seamless integration, if it's done right. Welcome to the Paragon Angle. Today, we're going to try and answer the question, what do I look for in an integration firm? Let's try to unpack this in a few short minutes. First of all, I would say evaluate the service offering. There's tremendous value in a firm that does audio, video, lighting, rigging, acoustics in a single one-source solution. Because in theory, the systems will be designed in unison, from power to distribution, networking systems, sightlines, color temperatures, floor pocket design. Audio would be married with acoustics, lighting is in unison with video. It's all thought out and working together. Because you don't want to end up with speakers hanging in front of screens and then it becomes your responsibility to fix it. A single source approach brings efficiency of installation and coordination, seamless integration, if it's done right. There are a lot of audio companies out there, for instance, that say they do lighting, but it's a firm of 14 audio guys and one token lighting guy, and they don't really specialize in that. So they don't do it well, or vice versa, right? Finding a company with all that firepower and absolute value in one place is unique, but that would be the goal, to leverage integration of systems and overall value. Secondly, you need an integrator that does their own design work in-house. Otherwise, the design work's being done by the manufacturer, which we consider a bit of a conflict of interest, because the design is then about selling equipment versus what the actual solution for the client needs to be. They might know their equipment very well, and many of them are subject matter experts, some of the smartest guys in the industry, right? But when it comes to understanding the church and designing a solution that best fits your objectives, mission, and parameters, systems that fit your programming and meets the full project budget, and is perfectly designed for your space, that's more the job for the integrator. Typically, we're looking at audio, video, lighting fused together as one. You need a team that understands how all those things work together, and someone who can leverage all the performance expectations against very tight budgets, maximizing bang for the buck. Third, you want someone who's not brand specific. You need to find the right solution for your project and space and not be pigeonholed into a specific brand because that's what your integrator happens to sell. We meet with churches all the time, and we're taking out systems that are only 4 and 5 years old because they got stuck with the very wrong product for that space. Fourth, it's all about experience. What is the experience level of their design teams? Because, again, they need to have their own design teams, right? You want people that have been doing this for 20, 30 years and have seen it all, and hopefully a team with a very diverse background that can look at things objectively. Number 5, check the references. If you're going to check the references on a new employee, you certainly want to check references on somebody that you're going to hand hundreds of thousands of dollars to. The good ones are going to have pages of references, testimonial videos, a track record of long-standing relationships. If they don't, they're probably not the right company. Number 6, make sure they are direct dealers for whatever gear they're providing and that they're not operating through some wholesaler. Otherwise, you're overpaying and they don't have a one-on-one relationship or leverage with the manufacturer. Last but not least, you have to be working with integrators that are using ETCP certified riggers for the design and implementation of your rigging systems. This is paramount for the safety and liability of your church. Now, notice I did not say anything about choosing the most cost-effective options, or choosing the guy down the street, or going out and finding the best audio, video, lighting guy and bringing them in and hope that they all work together while you do all the coordination work and try to stay sane when the blame game starts. In my opinion, those things are not what you want in an integrator. So as we wrap this up, the number one objective should be get it right the first time. It does not matter if the right option is $100,000 higher than the other option if you have to do it all over again or bring people in to fix it later. For more information on Paragon, check out Paragon360.com. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you on the next Paragon Angle.
Our main sponsor is Digital Great Commission Ministries. Whether you need help building a team, finding the right gear, or just better understanding the church tech world, DGCM is here for you. Because they are a 501c3 donor-sponsored organization, they come to your church for free and do an assessment of your tech, visitor engagement, and online streaming. Plus, we give away free gear. Be sure to go to audiovideolighting.com and register your email today. This will sign you up for all of the free giveaways and give you first access to everything we offer for free. If you want free resources, training, or consulting, contact Digital Great Commission Ministries today by going to audiovideolighting.com. That's audiovideolighting.com.
This podcast is brought to you by AC Lighting, world-class products with world-class service. aclighting.com.
Today's guest holds a master's degree in communications and brings over 20 years of experience in church ministry and production. Currently serving as the director of media at Prestonwood Baptist Church, he has a wealth of knowledge and expertise to share. Please join me in welcoming Bryan Bailey to the Tech Arts Podcast. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going. I hear I should call you Mr. Professor, though, that you got a gig down there at Dallas Baptist University. Is that right?
Yeah, Professor, Master Bailey, anything along those lines is fine. Yeah, that works.
All right, Mr. Professor Master Bailey. Let's see if I can remember all that.
Use them interchangeably, however you like to. It's no problem.
Well, Bryan, for our audience who doesn't know who you are, kind of tell us about your personal journey and what's inspired you to pursue the creative ministry as you have, and just share a little bit about your journey into this field.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. You know, I grew up here at Prestonwood Baptist Church from the time I was 3 years old. So I got to grow up in all of the children's choirs and the student choirs under Rick Briscoe, and being surrounded by amazing technology that whole time. I didn't even realize how unusual that was to be surrounded by that kind of technology. But I was a music guy. I was a singer, and so I did lots of performing, and I was in choir in school and all that. So when I went off to Ouachita Baptist University, I got my degree in church music because I felt like I was called to be a worship leader. And it was a great experience, got a great education, really furthered my musicianship and everything that I did. And when I graduated from Ouachita, I needed a job. I was leading worship part-time at a church there locally, so I wanted to stay around. So I got a job as the tech director of the Performing Arts Center at Ouachita. I had spent most of my college career in that building, so I knew it really well. And I was tech savvy enough to do all of that. So I was working full-time there, part-time leading worship, and really started to develop my lighting chops while I was working there. Got a lot of really good theatrical lighting experience there and education. And about 3 years into that, I got a call from Prestonwood that they needed a lighting director. And it was really kind of one of those crucial points, you know, in your timeline where it's like, okay, this means things that I'm going to choose to go full time all the way into technical stuff, and I'm not necessarily going to be leading worship anymore, at least not in the way that I traditionally believed that I was supposed to. But it was clear that that's what God had called us to do. So we moved back to Dallas and spent 2 years at Prestonwood as a lighting director, and as you can imagine, got some amazing experience. Exposed to a lot of different things, really started learning more about video through that process. And from there, to make it a short story, I'll save all the details, but I got called up to what's now Cross Church up in Northwest Arkansas. I was at the Pinnacle Hills location where we opened a new building when I got up there, and I was the director of media up there, so I was responsible for everything at that campus. I was there for 6 years, and then got called to First Baptist Dallas, where they were also opening a brand new building, a huge complex, after they had demolished everything there downtown. And so I came on there in 2011 and spent another 6 years at First Baptist Dallas as the minister of media there, which is where I met you, and we had some great conversations. And then, as God would have it, a lot of things changed here at Prestonwood, and they called me here in 2017, and I've been back here since as the director of media and doing all the things, and just kind of everywhere I go building that experience, good and bad, and putting it into what I do now.
Well, man, I've known you for a long time, and I think what makes your leadership so unique is what we're talking about today, which is excellence. And that is that you take a unique perspective to that, and you're not pounding people into the ground, which we'll get into a little bit about. You're very, you come around them, you lift them up, like any good lighting guy would do, right? You shine a light on them and say, hey, this is what you're doing great. This is how we can do better. But on the subject of excellence and defining that, how do you personally define it in the context of creative ministry?
When I really started truly thinking about this a number of years ago, excellence, unfortunately, in the church world, and I don't think it's just in the church world, but I would say certainly in the church world, has become a word that some people kind of push against, because I'm afraid that we've taken that word and used it as a euphemism for some negative things like perfection, or you simply can't mess up, or whatever it may be. And that's unfortunate. And I think that's something that we have to overcome. And as part of that, a lot of people, when you talk to them about excellence, their first reaction, in my experience, is, well, that's not something you can really define because it means something different for everybody. And I get what they're saying, and in a way, I believe that I agree with that. But I do think that there are certain hallmarks of excellence that we can define. Ron Harris is a really good friend of mine, and I know you know Ron as well. He leads a great ministry called Media Alliance, but he has 50 plus years of radio and broadcast experience. And he talks a lot about excellence. And so some things I've stolen from him. He's stolen some things from me too, trust me. But we share this information with each other. But there's 3 hallmarks that he and I have both talked about quite a bit. And I would say, and they're pretty basic. I don't think it's hard, but excellence is prepared, excellence is consistent, and it's always increasing. And I could talk for a couple of hours, in all honesty, about just those 3 points right there. But when we do a great job of preparation, part of that is forcing us to think about what it is that we're going to do. What are our expectations? All of those things that comes with preparation. When you've done that well, you're immediately enhancing whatever it is that you're trying to do, and it ensures that you've actually come up with a strategy for how you're going to do it. But then consistency is another thing. Now, if you're consistently terrible, then that doesn't qualify as excellence. I think we have to qualify that a little bit. But what I mean for churches is, like, if it's kind of a crapshoot as to what this particular Sunday is going to be like, and like last Sunday was awesome, this Sunday was pretty terrible, next Sunday is going to be fine, nothing messes up, but who knows what happens after that, that's not excellence. Excellence is when we're hitting the mark, whatever we've decided that is, every single week with a certain amount of consistency. So, on the rare occasion here that we have a major mess up of some kind, whether it's the lyrics getting off or a lighting cue doing something weird in the middle of the service or whatever, I don't have people coming to me breathing down my neck saying, what happened? How do we keep this from happening again? Because it's unusual that would happen. Because we are consistent in what we do. So when something happens that drops below that, it's a surprise, but everybody says, wow, that's weird. Something must have gone wrong with the gear or whatever. And then we're back to it immediately after that. But the third part of that is whatever that mark is that we've set, because in our preparation, we've decided what the mark is going to be. Now we're consistently executing to that mark, but now we want to increase that. We want to raise that bar a little bit higher for whatever reasons we've decided. So that's what I mean when I say that excellence is consistently increasing. We're getting better and better and better at what we do. When I turn around and look at what I was doing a year ago, I'm really happy with the progress that we've made since then. When I look at what we were doing 5 years ago, it's almost mind-blowing to think, I can't believe we were doing that 5 years ago. And we were fine with it, but we knew we needed to improve. But now, where we are, so that's kind of a good judgment for that, is if you can look back to 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and think, wow, that's almost embarrassing now that I think about it, that means that you have consistently been increasing over time to improve that. So I think that those 3 hallmarks are a vital pulse for what excellence is. And yes, that will look different at Prestonwood than it will at a church that's 80 people on a Sunday or a church that's 500 people on a Sunday. It really doesn't matter because it's all scalable. That's what I think is so vital to this, is our excellence is just a kind of in a different environment. We're a different culture. We have different resources than any other church might be. We all have those different things. But it's not an excuse to say, well, we don't have enough money to be excellent. No, you do. Or we don't have enough people to be excellent. You absolutely do. You just have to start planning and figuring out where are we and how do we improve what we have right now.
I like the first, I think it was the first one, preparation. I think a lot of churches miss this piece, and I think preparation is not necessarily preparing for the service. I like to tell people that you're going to make mistakes on a weekend. Excellence is not a zero mistake service. But what if you prepared for the mistake? Once you experienced it in the past, you've prepared for it now in the future. Or I like to tell churches this too. What is your mistake threshold? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, you're going to make mistakes. You're probably going to make at least one a weekend. It's probably not going to be a major audience notice mistake. But have you ever tracked your mistakes and set a threshold for, hey, this is where we want to be under this. We want to try to avoid audience notice mistakes, major distractions, and we want to be under one mistake a weekend, 2 mistakes a weekend. Have you ever tracked that and looked at that? Because that'll help you, right? If you're tracking that and all of a sudden you have 5 mistakes on a weekend, did we change people out? Was it something we did? Did we not communicate correctly? You now have feedback and you can prepare for it the next time versus we're kind of at our threshold. Not that we get lazy about it, but we had 1 mistake this weekend. That's kind of our average. Do you agree with that? I mean, do you feel like that's something that churches need to do more of?
If you are not evaluating in some way how things go each week, then you have no measurement tool to know how you did, how things are going, what adjustments you need to make. So I absolutely agree that there needs to be some sort of evaluation process in there. And I like that idea of a threshold. And part of what you're talking about there is just how to have good communication with your team. And when I say team, I mean paid staff, unpaid staff, people who are above you, because that needs to be, we need to make sure that whatever we've decided is good for our team is also something that the senior pastor agrees with. Because if we think that this threshold is fine, but he doesn't, then it really doesn't matter what we thought. We're going to have to adjust that threshold. But even getting together with your staff team and your volunteer team to say, hey, here's what we're trying to do and here's why. So one of the things that I talk about a lot is this idea of we want to be undistracting. We want undistracting excellence. So we want the people who are engaged in worship and the teaching to stay engaged, stay focused on maybe what the Holy Spirit is telling them. And whether it's something as obvious as a feedback squeal or maybe a lighting look that is just not appropriate for that moment, we don't want to pull them out of that moment at all. And so whenever we are having a discussion with somebody about, hey, this messed up, they already know. This isn't a Sunday morning conversation. This is a week after week after week on Wednesday nights, on emails that you send out, on lunches or coffees that you spend with your volunteers. This is a culture thing where you say, look, we're striving for excellence, partly so that people are able to have an engaging worship experience without any distraction. And so when a camera operator messes up in a way that's they should have known better, because we've been doing the training or whatever, we're not coming at them saying, you messed up and I'm angry at you because you shouldn't have done that. It's, hey, those things happen, but we know that we can't let those things happen very often because of why we're trying to do this. And so it's not me just coming down on them. They know, typically when one of our team messes up, I don't have to have much of a conversation with them because they're already being way harder on themselves than I would be able to be with them, because they do understand the mission and the vision. And they know that when they mess up, that's potentially subverting what it is that we're trying to do through that. So for me, that's a huge part of it, is just that communication and then being able to evaluate on some sort of a scale measuring tool, something as, all right, how'd we do?
Have you ever defined, I use the term audience notice mistake, but I know technicians, I'll paint the scenario. You go to a friend's play, you go backstage and you say, man, that was amazing. And they look at you and say, yeah, but I messed up like 5 times. And you're like, no, you didn't. It was great. Do you ever define the difference between an audience noticed mistake and what I call a tech noticed mistake, where the technician, how that was supposed to be blue and nobody in the room noticed it, but they focus so much on it that it gets them in trouble for the next service? Have you ever had that conversation and kind of defined that with your team? Hey, when it comes to excellence, these are things that it's not that we ignore them, but we're not super worried about this. This is what we're worried about.
So it's really funny because the short answer to that is yes, but the longer answer is we have developed our culture in such a way, especially on the paid staff side, just the way that we hire and the way that we train and everything, but it's true on the volunteer side as well. I spend more of my time trying to convince people that it wasn't that big of a deal. That's usually what I'm doing. I'm extremely particular. I'm very, very picky. I notice a lot of things.
Of course you do. You're a lighting guy.
I am. The lighting guys have the best eye for everything.
That's right.
So I have to be careful to make sure and by the way, words of affirmation is not my strongest love language. So I have to be careful that people don't always just hear me say, you know, it would be better, or you know what we should do here, or, you know, that sort of thing of like nothing's ever good enough, because that's typically what I'm looking for is, okay, that was fine, but if we did this, it would be a little bit better. But with my team, when things don't go exactly right, I would say 90% of the time, it's not a terribly noticeable thing by anybody in the audience. And so usually what I'm helping them understand is, hey, that thing that happened, the fact that it went blue instead of magenta, like 0% of people understood that that was not supposed to be that way. There's other times where it's, hey, if somebody really knew audio well, they would know that that wasn't the right thing, but the majority of the people in the room have no clue what happened. And so we kind of tier it like that as far as understanding, you know, it's the obvious mistakes. Most of us use our spouses as an example. Like if my wife noticed it, then it's probably pretty noticeable about it. Although my wife over the last 22 years she hates to admit it, has gotten pretty, she's started to notice things quite a bit. We've had various discussions about color temperature before she even realizes that that's what we were talking about. But, you know, so we kind of have those tiers of like, hey, nobody noticed that. Only people who really know what they're doing noticed it, and so it really doesn't matter. Or, yeah, people saw that that was a thing, so let's dig into that a little bit. But I think it's also, you know, important that as leaders, and whether that's me as the leader of my team, or if you're an executive pastor, or if you're a lead pastor, or if you're a worship pastor, it's really important to gauge your reaction to that accordingly. And that's something over the years that I've had to really learn how to do, because like I said, I'm not usually the person who is over there patting them on the back saying, it's okay. But over the years, I've become more like that, because I realized it doesn't help anything to make a huge deal out of something that wasn't that big of a deal. You know, when I first got back to Prestonwood, culture's changed here a lot in different ways. And I had an audio guy who missed a cue. When I say missed a cue, I mean somebody came up to do like a closing prayer, grabbed a random microphone that we weren't prepared for, and before we knew it was trying to talk and nobody could hear him. So it was noticeable. That was one of those, it's like, okay, everybody saw that there was a problem, but it also wasn't something that was like a flagrant foul, you know, like, okay, we could have been prepared for that a little bit better, but it happened and we weren't ready. And after the service, this audio guy came up to me and he looked like he assumed that I was about to fire him, you know. I said, hey man, like, you know, did you do this, this, and this? Well, yeah, okay. So what did we learn from it? Well, I always need to have this ready. All right, so we're good. I mean, I'll handle whoever has a problem with it, but don't worry about it. It's okay. And he just kind of had this, like, abused puppy look, like, really? Yeah. I said, now, if that happens again next week, then we have a different problem, because now you're repeating something that we've already talked about. But
yeah, we got to dive in a little further.
Yeah. And part of my job was to buffer him from another person who was overreacting to what happened, but I was able to do the same thing with that person. Hey, it happened. We figured out a way to make sure it probably doesn't happen again, so we're all good. And that's a huge part of what we have to do as team leaders, is be that buffer, set expectations, be hard when we need to be hard, but also understand that, look, we've got enough to do, so let's not beat up everything that comes down the line as though it's the most important thing ever.
I've never heard anybody walk out of a church service and say, man, they missed that mic cue and it was ruined for me.
Yeah.
I've heard people say they missed like 4 or 5 mics. What was going on with the sound system? But I've never heard anybody walk out after one missed mic cue and say, wow, they missed that one mic and it totally distracted me from the pastor speaking.
Right.
So there is kind of a context that technicians take it to the next level, and really you got to look at the full service. But let me ask you this about inspiration sources in excellence. We've all heard this, right? We want to be excellent, like Elevation or Bethel Church or Prestonwood. We've all heard people say those things. What do you say to those churches who want to find inspiration for creative projects? They want to do it with excellence. They want to be fresh. They want to be innovative, but they're constantly getting the let's do it like Elevation, which has a budget way up here, or Prestonwood, which has a budget way up here. What do you say to them in terms of inspiration?
Well, I think the very first place to start with that could make this a really short answer, which is you shouldn't be looking to anybody else for inspiration until you've decided, or until you've heard God explain to you what your ministry is supposed to be doing. So don't go and chase Prestonwood or Elevation or anybody else and then try and pattern after them because, well, they did it, so that's clearly what we need to do. Start internally first and say, who are we? Who has God called this church to be? Because I believe that each church has special callings, special resources. The pastor has a certain calling. The worship leader has a certain calling. And all of that comes together to form that church into who they are. Some churches are very much mission-driven churches. This is going to be a missional church. They're going to plant churches. They're going to go on mission trips. They're going to give a lot of their money resources to missions, that sort of thing, which doesn't mean that they don't do anything else, but maybe that's what they're really pushing things towards. Other churches are going to be very worship-driven, like this is who we are, this is what and that's great. But you have to figure out, like, what has God called our church to be? Now, let's get secure in ourselves as a church, and then we can start looking out and seeing what else is out there and finding elements that we pull into who we are. Honestly, it's an extension of our own individual personalities. Because if I'm not grounded as Bryan Bailey, if I haven't decided in my heart, this is what God has called me to do, this is who God has called me to be, once I do that, then I can go and pick things out there that I see and say, that would benefit me really well. Not that, but this element of it, I'm going to pull this in and I'm going to start implementing that. And this thing over here. But if I don't know who I am, then I'm going to look out and say, David Lushner, that guy, he's awesome. He's got a podcast. He wears cool hats all the time. Like, I want to be that guy. And so then I'm going to start wearing shirts like you do and hats like you do and get the same kind of microphone you do and all of those things. And it's not going to work because I'm not David Lushner. I don't have that experience, that background, those talents, those resources. I'm Bryan Bailey, and God has called me to be something in particular. So we have to do the same thing as a ministry, because otherwise we're chasing something and God is likely standing over somewhere over here going, hey, that's actually not what I had for you. And it's not going to work. It's either going to fail completely, or it's never going to grow, or you're going to have all sorts of issues within the organization. And so that's what it comes down to for me. Now, that being said, once you've established that, then you're going out with more self-confidence, and you're able to look at things a little more objectively. And you're able to look at something and say, well, let's go to Prestonwood's worship service. And you can sit in there and say, wow, I would definitely not do it like that. But I like that how they're doing the arrangements of those songs and mixing the orchestra with the rhythm section. That's a lot better than some of the stuff we've been doing, and it falls in line with our goals and what we've set, in front of us. So let's talk to them about how they do it. Maybe we can implement some of those things. I think that's a healthy way to approach that.
Yeah, start with the DNA of your church. I've said this before. I think the Catholic Church is never going to, they're never going to do contemporary worship, right? So they're not going to go to Elevation and try to have a Catholic Elevation church. It just isn't going to happen. They start with the DNA of who they are, who you are, and that's what you build on. Catholic churches can do things with excellence, just like your church can do things with excellence. It's really starting with the DNA of your church. And I think you phrased it really well, that you can't be the other person. You have to be authentic in who you are as a church. That comes down to the vision of the pastor. If the vision of the pastor is to have a very simple worship, stripped down worship set, and you come out with rock and roll guitars and drums, he's going to, even if it's the best contemporary worship set I've ever heard in my entire life, he's going to say that wasn't done with excellence. Why? It was off from what the vision was. So you have to kind of be inside the vision. You got to start with the DNA of your church, and then you can expand outside of that. But when people think of expanding, and I think this is a tough question, and they're trying to balance excellence with creativity and budgets and the message and the vision, what would you say to people to balance the artistic creativity with staying true to your DNA, and then balancing all those things, excellence, creativity, budgets, the message? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think, the core of that has got to be the message. And whether you're talking about, theologically what you're talking about as a church, or whether you mean like, here's our mission and our core values and that sort of thing, there has to be something that everybody can rally around to know, here's our cornerstone for who we are. And then you can gauge whatever you're trying to do creatively against that. The creative thing, whether you're talking about, creating videos, whether you're talking about doing interesting things with audio, whether you're talking about creating, lighting looks, or, what's going on the LED walls or IMAG screens or whatever. It's easy for us as creatives to kind of get in that zone and start creating things for the sake of creating things. And that's where I think most of us get in trouble, where it's like, ooh, this would be cool. Oh, and then we could go here. And before you know it, you've gone so far off the edge over here compared to where we were supposed to be at our core, that the congregation just leaves wondering, what, I don't know what that was necessarily. Or the pastor gets up after that to preach and has to reconvene everybody back to the center of where it is. So I think starting with that core is super important. Now, when you talk about budgets, I think it's important for us to, and it's difficult for me to even say sometimes, but excellence and creativity does not necessarily equal big budgets. Things are expensive. And I think in this day and age, I think more churches need to have a better understanding of how much things actually cost so that they can budget more appropriately for technology and things like that. But at the end of the day, things are expensive. And so we, as tech directors or as the video director or as the audio director, whatever you are, whatever area you have control over, we have to figure out how to be the best stewards of that. So, in the audio world, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? What, when we're building that new building or refurbing that room and we're going to put in a new sound system, what are our goals? What are the things that we need for that? And then once you decide what those needs are, you can decide, okay, this tool would work awesome for it, but it costs this much money. This tool would get the job done, and it's going to be fine. We're not going to run into any issues with it. It's not as great as this other tool is, but it saved us, 40% on the budget, so it's worth it to do this. Good stewardship is vital in this, because I have to stay humble enough and always be thinking about these things from a stewardship perspective, whether it's people resources or money resources. Now, on the flip side, I think it's important for churches to hear this, that good stewardship does not necessarily just mean spending the least amount of money possible. Good stewardship is taking that core that we developed, that cornerstone that says, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and then let's spend the right amount of money to accomplish what we said we were setting out to accomplish. Because if I spend the least amount of money and I save a bunch of money, but we didn't accomplish what we said we wanted to, then what did I do? Now I'm just setting the church up to spend more money down the road, maybe even immediately, because we didn't actually do what we needed to do. So there's a balance on all sides of this, and it's a tricky thing to balance for sure. But when it comes to that creativity, pulling this back into what is this conversation we had that said, here's who we're trying to be as a church, or maybe even a particular event, or on a Sunday morning worship service.
Yeah, I'm glad you hit on the stewardship point, because I believe stewardship is excellence.
Oh, yeah.
Those two can be tied very closely together. How you steward what you're given is excellence. I can't remember the exact scripture, but or how it went, but you remember the one that buried their stuff in the sand versus the one that went and multiplied what they were given from their master.
Yeah.
That's stewardship, and that's excellence in terms of stewarding what you're given and what you're doing for your church service and for the pastor's message. I've seen some really amazing, creative, single person, one light monologues that did not take a lot of money, but really hit the vision, hit the message, hit the mission dead on. And that wouldn't have happened with hundreds of thousands of dollars. That moment was created by stewarding the idea they were given,
which made it that much more impactful. And that scripture ends with the master saying, "Didn't you know what kind of a master I am, and that I would expect these things?" And I believe, coming into this discussion on excellence, that's the kind of God we have. You look at the Old Testament and see how the temple was built. The specifications for the temple didn't come from the people building the temple. They came directly from God. He's the one who said, I expect this, and I want the best craftsman. As a matter of fact, here's the craftsman you're going to use. So God expects excellence. And there's a weird thing out there right now that I've seen a lot on social media where I say weird, I find it weird. And I would love to get more insight into why people feel like this, but this idea that excellence has no place in the church. And at first I thought that was just an odd outlier. And then I would see more and more comments about this on various videos and stuff like that. And I've realized that there's a group of people out there who really believe that there's no place in the church for excellence. It should all be, I'm not even really sure what it's supposed to be, but it's not supposed to be that. And they're not necessarily just referring to we shouldn't be spending money on technology. It's even less than that. And scripturally, I think one of the best analogies I've seen using scripture is the woman who brought her expensive perfume to Jesus and broke it and poured it on his feet and anointed him with that. And who got upset with that? Judas did. I think some of the other disciples did as well, but there was this talk about how much money was that she just wasted on this. And Jesus said, no. This is what I want. She gets it. And to me, that's what we do. We should be anointing God with the best, most expensive oil that we can because he deserves it. And that's how we point people to him.
Yeah, and that encouraged her as well, which I think that's a part of excellence. And many churches feel beat down. We talked about that a little earlier. Oh, we didn't do that service with excellence today because we made this mistake or that mistake. So how do you use excellence to encourage people?
One of the things that I have found is internally, when we create an environment where we're trying to do things with as much excellence as we can, where we create a very professional feeling environment where the staff members come in, and again, paid or unpaid staff come in and feel like, oh, okay, we're doing a thing here and we're taking this very seriously. We're not taking it too seriously, but we're taking it very seriously. Then everybody feels like they're a part of something really important because we've communicated, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's the expectations of what's going to happen. And when we've done this in the past, here's the sort of outpouring of the Spirit that has come from that. And so they're coming in, taking it very seriously, and they're excited to be a part of it. And man, when you, one of the most satisfying things is when you see one of your volunteers who is a school teacher or a CPA or whatever, and they are proudly posting on social media some event that we did or the fact that they ran this camera for this thing or whatever, and they're talking, I mean, you would think that this person was a professional camera operator, you know. They are so excited about it, it's so fulfilling because we took it seriously and we approached it and executed it with excellence, which raises the bar of everything. And that's hugely encouraging for those folks, especially just, you know, the lay church person who just wants to serve. They just want to be a part of what their church is doing and to further what's going on. And they find that to be so fulfilling. And I love it. And it's hard because those of us who work at the church every single day and this is our job, it's fulfilling as well, but we're a little bit, you know, not necessarily jaded to it, but this is what we do. Yeah, we did it and we were supposed to do it. So it's fun when you see somebody get really excited about it. But even beyond that, I love it when somebody who I've never met sends me an email or a message on Instagram and says, thank you for doing this. This is the sort of thing that I love seeing, and I'm taking some of the things that you did and I'm going to try and implement them at our church because I know that we can do things better than we're doing them now. So because the ministry that I'm responsible for is pursuing excellence, it is causing other ministries all over the world to also pursue excellence. And for me, that's the best way to be doing missions. And all I'm doing is just doing my job, setting the bar where we're supposed to, and that's how God's able to use it.
Yeah, I think statistics can help encourage people with excellence as well, too. So, for example, you know, if your church doesn't do this, they should. But how many people were baptized? How many people were saved? How many people came through our doors for a special event and were reached, like single mothers and things of that nature? We are a church doing things with excellence because 400 people got baptized this year. I mean, that's just encouraging to volunteers. That's encouraging to staff. That's encouraging people through the use of excellence, whether or not your church is something that does very simple audio, video, and lighting, or very complicated audio, video, and lighting. That is something that allows you to use that word excellence to encourage them. But let me flip this on you a little bit. Criticism and feedback. How do you handle criticism of your work while still striving for excellence?
Not always as well as I would like to say that
that I do.
You just punch him in the face, right? No.
Just only in my head. It's a difficult thing because, like I said, and this has been true at all the churches I've worked at, have had very, very high bars, very high expectations. And because of that, they hire accordingly, we train accordingly, and we prepare accordingly, and we execute very well at any of those churches that I've been at. So I mentioned, if something happens and the lyrics don't happen right, or we didn't get that slide up at the right time or whatever, that's an anomaly typically. But there's always somebody who's going to send you that text message like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but the lyrics didn't come up right. It's like,
that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what you think I do during the service, but I noticed it, and we got it fixed as quick as we can. Now, that's not what I'm saying to that person.
That's what you want to say.
It is. Well, the enemy knows how to push my buttons, and one great way is for somebody to assume. Somebody says something to me that makes me think that person thinks that I'm completely incompetent at what I do. And that's a pride thing, and I'm very painfully aware of that, and I have a wonderful wife who helps remind me of those things as well. So this, I don't mean to over-spiritualize this, but this is what this is. I find that those moments where those criticisms come is largely a form of spiritual warfare. Now, that's not to say that every criticism is wrong and it's just Satan trying to get under my skin, because you've got to be able to accept criticism and understand that you don't know everything. So sometimes we'll have sessions where we'll sit down with our worship team and watch a service, and they will give us their thoughts and opinions on the camera shots that we took and all the other things that go along with that. That is one of those moments where you've got to walk into that discussion, number one, knowing we're a team and the goal of this is for all of us to get to the same place and get there as well as we can. And then I have to remember that this person has no idea how I do what I do, and they could not sit down and direct that show to fix the things that they think are wrong. That's not their fault. So I have to come at it with the humility of, okay, totally hear what you're saying. Here's why we did it this way, but maybe we can adjust it like this. But then there's other times where you just have to take it and say, yeah, that should be better. And I will say this, as somebody who really doesn't like to be wrong, really, which my wife can also attest to, I don't like to be wrong. When I'm wrong, it is so much easier when I just say, yeah, I missed that. Let's make a change. People will respect you more for that. You can continue the conversation easier with that. And you can sleep better at night, when you are able to see that and admit it. It doesn't mean that it's easy or fun, but it sure does help. But I think that all of those criticisms that come, whether they're warranted or not warranted, are a way that Satan is able to come at us with spiritual warfare, and we have to stay aware of that. And it's amazing to me when you stay aware of that, when you are staying plugged into the Word, and when you're starting each day with this idea that, okay, especially on like a Sunday, like Sundays are when the worst things tend to get said. If you start your Sunday with this idea that Satan's going to come at us with something today, then when he does, you can identify it. So when that person says what they say, rather than you just getting all hacked off, you can be like, ha, that's so obvious that was actually Satan saying something, because that's not in that person's nature. Or, normally that would have just sent me over the roof. So we don't need to over spiritualize it in a way that's not healthy, but I think typically we under spiritualize things. And really, when you think about it, the media ministry, whether it's the technicians or the creatives or whatever, if Satan really wants to cripple the ability of a church to reach people, if he can't get to the senior pastor, and if he can't get to somebody else who's high level that's going to cause a whole lot of issues, in the church and in the media, then the media ministry is a natural choke point where if he can get in there, and whether it's causing technical issues or whether it's causing personality issues that means that things don't go so well, you can take the greatest pastor, the greatest expositor of the word, and if the technology that person is having to use isn't working well, then it doesn't matter how well that person is expositing the word. People aren't going to get it because they're distracted or it's just not happening. So I tell my team all the time, we are that choke point when you think about it from like a military perspective. So the enemy's going to be coming at us. So don't be surprised when those darts come flying at you. Now, criticism comes in all sorts of forms, right? And so I tend to be my own harshest critic. So it's rare that somebody else is going to come at me with something harder than that. But I just have to prepare my heart for all of those things.
I think you hit something there that is key, and that is it's how we react to it.
Yeah.
I think criticism can make us better. Understanding our failures can make us better. Tracking mistakes and, how we react to them can make us better. But the way we react to it typically is we want to react with anger and pushback and pride, and that doesn't make us better. And I think what you said is if you can eliminate what, it's a spiritual attack. If you can essentially eliminate what Satan is trying to do, which is get you to react to it in a way that's defensive and prideful, if you can set that aside, then that criticism will make you better. You'll be able to look at it in a rational way and say, okay, I got the text message about a couple mistakes that we made. How can we do better next time? Recognize that with the person and move on. But if you're defensive, and you're probably not going to see how to do it better. And so I think what you said is right. We tend to under-spiritualize it. If we over-spiritualize it just a little bit more, we'll see where the attack is coming from, set that aside, and then use the criticism to get better.
It's also healthy for you as somebody who works at a church for the long haul, because I know too many people who do what we do, who take those criticisms, take all of those negative things that happen and just absorb them. And that starts to become toxic. And, even if they can react well on the outside, that usually doesn't last for long when you start absorbing that stuff. But I'm not going to make it very long in this type of ministry if I take everything personally and if I don't recognize the spiritual warfare that's going on. So I just think that's a point that, man, and it doesn't matter what size church it is. You're whether you're on a staff of 3 people or a staff of 300 people, these things are going to hit you one way or the other. So that that spiritual preparation, that heart preparation, is vital to making sure that you react well, but also that you can stay in this thing for the long haul.
Yeah, and if you're stretched thin, if you've got a lot going on in your life and you're working a lot of hours, that changes how you react to criticism.
Yeah.
And so I think it goes back to the word stewardship, right? How we steward our hours, how we do things in life is going to change how we react to that criticism. Let me ask you this, Bryan. So along the lines of vision to the future, kind of my last question here. What's your vision for the future of creative tech ministry, and how can we continue to push boundaries while staying grounded and maintaining excellence?
One of my passions, and actually the way that I first met you and started having conversations is, how do we use our volunteer teams to further the mission of the church, and specifically with technology. And I think one of the ways that we really move into the future with church is digging into that more, because I think we're looking I think we're looking at a world in the not too distant future where the idea of having lots of contractors come in to run, sound and cameras and lights and other things, or, just massive staff of people to run everything. I think that's going to continue to erode. It already has in a lot of places, but I think that's going to continue to erode. And I think what's happening is kind of a refining. When I first started really understanding the power of what it means to empower your volunteers, one of the first things I discovered is how much work it takes to do the brain work behind it, to prepare for it, to generate the materials, to come up with the training program, to do the training and to do the training and to do the training over and over and over again, and to build them up. It's a lot of work. And even financially, from a budget perspective, there's certain things that you need to put into that to have a great experience for that team to empower them. And there's a reason why not a whole lot of churches have an amazing volunteer training process, and it's because of that. And so I think part of the future of what happens with the church, as far as our perspective goes, is we're going to continue to find ways to enhance that in a way where you won't be able to tell the difference between a fully volunteer-run production and a production that's run by a bunch of professionals. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a different sort of mindset when you're designing video systems. We just did a new video system here at Prestonwood that is, it's got a huge learning curve to it, but we're doing mostly robotic cameras. And what we're finding is that especially newer volunteers who've never touched a manual camera before are coming in, and they're able to learn it pretty quickly because it's like a video game. And they can wrap their mind around that, and it's fun, and it's more comfortable than being in the room with a bunch of people staring at the back of your head. And so I think part of the future that we're looking at is how do we do more with less, which is a phrase I really hate to say because it's got such a negative connotation. But I think we can do that. We can empower our church members to do this sort of thing. On the same side of that, how do we utilize technology in a way that's not going to break the bank whenever the church needs to spend money on this stuff? And the manufacturers are helping with that. I think there's a lot of things that are happening nowadays, especially if you go back. I mean, this better than I do. If you go back 20 years, 15, 20 years, when you're looking at whether it's a video switcher or an audio console or anything like that, the tiers were very well defined. You've got garbage, you've got something that's kind of okay, and then you have the top of the line. Well, now, you look at certain manufacturers and it's like they have this huge line of products with pricing and with features that can adapt to whatever it is that you're trying to do. So it's a different world now than it used to be, and I think we're finally moving into that quite a bit. Maintaining the excellence, though, man, it's about the mentality more than it is about anything else. It's about that idea of whatever my budget is, whatever my team is, what can I do with what I have, and then from there, how can I build it out so that we can continue to improve?
I would answer the question like this. I think that churches are moving more and more towards automation, what I call the one-man band. It bothers me kind of in a negative way because I think that is the future of creative tech ministry. How can one or two people do an entire service? I think that's where we're heading. But the reason it bothers me is tech ministry is a small group of people that aren't worship leaders. They're not missionaries that go physically fly somewhere. They're not pastors on the platform, and they want to be a part of church. And so I think the challenge of the new tech director is to do exactly what you did. And that is, hey, we're going to utilize pan tilt zoom cameras. We're going to utilize automation of PTZs. But how do we incorporate our volunteers in that so we're going to do more with less, but we're still going to incorporate the people aspect of it so that we still tie in to what I think church is about, and that is the small group atmosphere of connection with other people. I don't like, and I know sometimes it heads this way, I don't like the one front of house audio guy or gal who runs everything from front of house. I like to have the individual positions, and how do we do more with less in the way that you did it? Pan tilt zoom cameras. So you have one volunteer that's doing several things. I think that's key to maintaining the vision for the future while also maintaining excellence. So Bryan, if people are out there and they're like, man, I want some more insights, I want to figure out what all they're doing at Prestonwood, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Worship Media Man. That's Worship Media Man. So you can see everything from lots of tech videos and pictures to the latest meat that I've smoked to whatever fish I've caught lately. There's a lot of different things on there. You may not care. My dogs end up on there quite a bit. But you can also email me. Feel free to email me directly at bbailey@prestonwood.org. Man, I love talking to folks. I love to have these conversations. I have a burden that, because of the way that God has blessed me over the years at working at all these different places and having the experiences I've had, I feel like I'm supposed to help other people with that as well. And it's not because I know all the answers. It's because I've had some experience and developed some opinions, and I just love talking about this. And sometimes, David, anytime you and I get to talk, for me, it's just like, it's a nice encouragement, because sometimes you just need to talk with somebody who understands what you're dealing with, even if they can't help you. I have conversations all the time, and it goes both ways, where it's like, I just need to vent a little bit and make sure somebody who understands hears me. So if you don't have that person in your life, man, I'm happy to be that. And there's a lot of other people that are too. And just, we can help start with the networking of this.
And so you can reach out to me at our ministry here, digitalgreatcommission.org. We're here to help. Or you can contact Bryan at his handle at Worship Media Man, or his email, bbailey@prestonwood.org. Bryan, thanks for coming on and talking to our audience about excellence.
It was an honor, man. I appreciate it.
Well, that wraps things up for today's episode. I can't wait to talk to you on the next Tech Arts podcast. Until then, I'm David Leuschner, signing off by wishing you a great day and praying God blesses every moment of your week. See you soon.
You have been listening to the Tech Arts Podcast, presented by Digital Great Commission Ministries. DGCM is a 501c3 nonprofit that was started to help churches with all things technical. Whether you need help building a team, finding the right gear, or just a better understanding of the church tech world, DGCM is here for you. Find out more about our free on-site visits, reports, and consulting by going to audiovideolighting.com. Digital Great Commission Ministries will help you run your church service like a pro. Find out more at audiovideolighting.com. This podcast is brought to you by AC Lighting, world-class products with world-class service. aclighting.com.
From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz. From front of house to center stage, for over 25 years, Earthworks microphones have sculpted the sounds of your favorite concerts, venues, and performances. Earthworks Audio is a sponsor of the Tech Arts Podcast. We are so happy to have them on board and excited to promote the new Earthworks SR117 vocal mic and capsules. To find out more about Earthworks Audio or to get your hands on this mic, go to earthworksaudio.com. That's earthworksaudio.com. Capturing emotion with sound. earthworksaudio.com.